Hi folks, we're going to do a book haul tonight and it's going to be a game of two halves. We've got 37 books in total and the first half are going to be vintage of one flavour or another. So I was in Henley last weekend, I think it was, and so that was at the end of June, early July, and I went to the Oxfam bookshop in Henley while I was there, because why wouldn't you? And they had a few things. They had several kind of small hardbacks. So they had a bunch of really nice vintage hardbacks. When I say vintage, they're from the 70s. It counts as vintage these days. So the first was a Gollancz hardback of Transmigration by Michael Bishop. And I really don't know anything about that. In the clearing of the great forest of the planet Boskveld, a strange ape-like species of alien, the Asadi, act out their almost incomprehensible rituals. So there are humans observing these aliens and trying to figure out, what the hell's going on. But that is a very nice little book. It's, small format hardback. It's in really very good condition. Printed in 1979. It's a first edition UK hardback. Never heard of him or the book. Next I have an author that until recently I had never heard of, and I only know now because I watched one of Steve's videos over on Outlaw Bookseller, and he was waxing lyrical about Chelsea Quinn Yarborough. So this again is in excellent condition. It's really, I think I wouldn't be embarrassed to call that fine condition. In fact, it's really it's tight, it's neat, the dust jacket's in perfect condition, the pages are not yellowed or foxed or anything like that. It's not price clipped. It's Sidgwick and Jackson first edition from 1979, and you could be forgiven for thinking that it was published yesterday. It's in perfect condition. And then someone I have now heard of and even read one of his books is Robert Silverberg. Again, really nice condition. It's another Sidgwick and Jackson Diddy format hardback. So this again is in excellent condition. It's from 1975. It's a UK first edition, and it is in splendid condition. There is nothing wrong with it. The cover's in the cover has a slight bit of scuffing just from shelf wear on the bottom, which is a bit of a shame. But that could maybe be sort of encouraged back into position. It's actually possible that I did that, carting it back from the shop in its in a bag. But that cost me, along with the others, £2.99 each so far. I mean that's no money for something that's in such good condition. And then we've got, in similar sort of style, a Frederick Pohl, The Cool War, but again in perfect condition. And this one was even cheaper, it was £1.99. Can't go wrong. And then in the same shop on the same day I also got the Asimov edited Hugo Winners books. So that's the first one, 1970-72, in perfect condition, cost me £1.99. And then there's one for 1973. I don't know what was so special about 1973 that it got its own book. But that has I don't know what they are, short stories or novellas or what. Let's have a look. It has got, The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. Is it Le Guin or Le Guin? Le Guin. Let's go with Le Guin. Goat Song by Paul Anderson, The Meeting by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth, and Urima's Dam by R.A. Lafferty. So these are a mixture of short stories and novels, I think. So that's rather nice. So that's a 1973 book, and then 1974 to 1975, again in perfect condition, again £1.99. So I was a happy camper. I walked away from that shop feeling pretty good about things. And then today being Friday the 7th, I went I found myself with an hour and a half free at lunchtime between meetings, and it's just enough time to scoff something to eat, then jump in the car, drive the 20-25 minutes in busy traffic to Woodley, home of my nearest Oxfam bookshop, and where they have a pretty steady stream of good stuff. Have a browse, pop to the other charity shops in Woodley, and then pop home again, fighting my way through lunchtime traffic. I just made it with 5 minutes to spare until my next meeting. But in this my brief browse in said Oxfam bookshop, they had several Philip K. Dick hardbacks. Those are not something you see very often, so I was pretty amazed to find that. So another Gollancz small format Philip K. Dick. This is Lies Inc. Lies Incorporated. When I first looked at it, I saw that it was originally published in 1964, and that this was published in 1984, so 20 years later. So I thought, oh, it's a reprint just in the nice Gollancz format. But according to the publisher's note, so according to Gollancz, this novel has a complicated history. First published in magazine form in 1964 under the title Unteleported Man. Dick wrote another 30,000 words for its first book publication, but that material was never used. The original published book was the same as the magazine. Many years later, Dick read the unpublished material, or reread the unpublished material, and arranged for publication in the US of a complete edition. And then he died, so it never happened. So the novel was reissued in 1983 in its full 1966 version, but without the intended revisions. And then in 1983, whilst Gollancz were in the process of getting this published, the people managing his estate found amongst his papers the manuscript for the missing bits, which was most of the 30,000 extra words. There were still 2 missing manuscript pages, which are missing. So somebody else, John Sladek, an author whom Dick greatly admired, has written short linking passages to create a convincing narrative, and then it gives the page numbers where you can find those bits and pieces. So this is arguably it's not a first edition; it's the first full edition, or the fullest that there can be edition of this book worldwide, and certainly in the UK. So that's rather nice. And then they also had The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, which is I've only just recently got in paperback. But again, this is unusually it's a Gollancz, so it's not yellow or white. That's the normal kind of colours. But this one is in rather nice royal blue. And that's one of his final 3 books. The final trilogy, I think, is often referred to. But anyway, this was published in 1982. It is a UK first edition, and it is in near perfect condition. It's got a plastic cover on the dust jackets. The dust jackets, so there is a bit of kind of muck, but that's on the plastic cover, not on the dust jacket. I did have a look, and it's pretty pristine underneath. I don't think it's that particularly rare. Quick check on AB books. I found quite a lot of them kind of kicking around. On the other hand, something which appears to be a little bit more rare, and I'm only judging that because they were going for in excess of £100, is Varlis by Philip K. Dick. In this edition with a afterword by Kim Stanley Robinson. So this is published by Kerosene Books, so not Gollancz this time. It is, I'm nearly certain, yes, it's the first hardcover edition. It's rather nice. It's got a 10-20 page afterword by the aforementioned Kim Stanley Robinson. The book is, like the others, in really good condition. There's a bit of discoloration on the back, I think, just from where it's been on the shelf next to some other things. But the cover is in otherwise pretty good condition. £2.49, and if I was minded to, I could probably flog this for in excess of £50 quite easily. There are booksellers looking for it in excess of 100 for it on eBay, and if it's signed, it's gangbusters. So that's 3 really nice copies of Philip K. Dick hardbacks, 2 of the 3 final trilogy. They also had slightly grubby science fiction book club version of Philip K. Dick and Robert Zelazny's collaboration Deus Irae. I expect I'm pronouncing that wrong, but that's quite a slender book, 249. Again, it's the cover's not in brilliant condition, but the book underneath, the cloth bound sort of book with a kind of gilt lettering on the spine there, is in actually really nice condition. So is that enough Dick for one man at lunchtime? Well, it turns out no, it's not. They also had, it's not science fiction, but the completist in me couldn't help buying it. Voices from the Street, which was actually his, I think, if not his earliest, then one of his very earliest books, but it was never published, at least not while he was alive. And this is a US edition, and it was published in 2007, so pretty recently. But this is the the final notes on the end paper are: this novel completes the publication of his canon. One wonders why it was never published, but nevertheless, good to have that. So that's 5 Dicks, count them, 5 Dicks. So we still have some vintage shizzle to do, all paperbacks now, unfortunately. So there's a Philip Jose Farmer omnibus, which is called Father to the Stars, which I think is a collection of, I don't know if they're short stories or novellas. Looks like short, sort of chunky short stories, which feature Father John Carmody as a priest, and he seems to fly around in a ship with a big fat cross on it. So more about it than that I do not know. And then I think I might have a John Wyndham problem. So I picked up the other day, I forget where, in Oxford maybe, I don't know, in a charity shop anyway. These 2 in that sort of mid-70s kind of pale, almost like hand-drawn, illustrated covers, designed by Harry Wilcock, of The Outward Urge, which, considering its age, is in really nice condition. It's the front and back cover in good nick. The spine's got a bit of kind of scuffing on it, as you often find on these older books. And then also of The Trouble with Lichen, which again is in not bad condition, really, considering it's from 1976. So I think I now have the full set of this edition of the John Wyndham novels. I think there are 7, and I think I've got them all. I also found 2 very nice, on separate occasions, I think, 2 very nice Wyndhams in this format, which is from, I think, still Penguin, but I think from the early 80s, this one. So it's from 1981, I think. So that is another copy of The Outward Urge. So I've just picked up 2 in the space of no time at all in a nice book. That's a really great cover though, look at that. And again, it's a very bright copy. There's not a mark on it, really. The spine is completely clean. There's not much in the way of tiny bit of kind of scuffing there, but really it's pretty good. And I think I've got another couple in this livery, so I might have 4 now, and there are 7 in total to get, so I'm missing 3, I forget which. So The Kraken Wakes is the other one. Again, it's perhaps not in as good a condition as the Outward Urge. It's a bit faded on the spine, but it's it's in a good clean copy, and this was printed in 1982. I probably like this format better than the mid-70s kind of slightly more subdued design. I think these are a bit lairier, a bit more colourful, a bit nicer. I've actually got 3 sets of John Wyndham books on the go where I'm trying to find the full set of novels. There's the early 70s one, which with the subdued Harry Wilcock designs, and then there's the 2 that I've just shown you. That's the second, and then the third is from the I'm going to say mid 80s, which are somewhere in between from a cover illustration interest point of view, and I've got 2 or 3 of those as well. All right, so Joe Haldeman. Having recently read The Forever War, I'm quite keen to get stuck in some other Joe Haldeman books. I don't know what the rest of his oeuvre is like. I certainly enjoyed The Forever War. So that is All My Sins Remembered, which is a US edition. And then just today, I found in the same Oxfam as the Philip K. Dick hardbacks that I found, a pretty clean copy of the Tombs of, what's it called? The Tombs of Atuan, which is the second of the Earthsea books. I think it's the second, possibly the third. Second book, and it's a UK first edition paperback, I think, from 1974. So in the Puffin, and for a book of its age, it's in really clean condition. It's tight. There's no damage to the cover. The spine is in pretty good condition. Gateway by Frederick Pohl. Rich Man, Dead Man. Those were the choices Gateway offered. The same for women too, of course. Gateway opened on all the wealth of the universe and on reaches of unimaginable horror. So it's a bit of intergalactic roulette, it seems. High risk, high reward. And then there's a Ben Bova, Test of Fire. I don't know much about that. Let's see. A hard, dark book, The Story of Mankind After the Fall. Compulsory reading. That's Harry Harrison saying that. It lasted less than an hour, and on the scale of the sun's seething furnace of energy, it had been little more than a minor disturbance, but the sun flare had left half planet Earth a funeral pyre, etc., etc. So basically, slightly American-centric perhaps, but the rest of the world, Asia, Europe, Africa and Australia, which must have been facing the sun at the time, are absolute toast. And Americas was spared that, but dealing with the aftermath of the rest of the world being destroyed. Seems to have been a nuclear exchange in the aftermath as well, just to add to the fun. Only the few hundred men and women living on the moon were safe and protected. But for them, after the millennium, came the Test of Fire. So I don't know what that's about. Well, I've just said what it's about, but I haven't read it. And then I've got a CJ Cherry, which again I haven't read. In fact, I have not read anything of hers yet. I've got a few now. I must add her to one of my TBRs in the coming months. That is I'm not sure if it's a sequel or just kind of set in the same world. It's a sort of surviving a fragile human colony struggles to survive in a world of telepathic predators and scavengers. Here illusions can destroy and emotions can kill, etc., etc. Here only the riders, with a capital R, bonded to the alien night horses, can protect humanity from the horrors beyond its village walls. Wow, okay. So that's that, and then there's a few more hardbacks. So I found, I think in Oxford somewhere, a Stephen Baxter that I hadn't heard of. It's a recent publication. World Engine's creator. So I think there are at least 2 books in this series. And this one was only published in 2020, so it's a UK first, and it I think is the second. There's another one called Destroyer, sort of an alternate history type gig. Today, so that's Friday the 7th, in the Oxfam Philip K. Dick Bonanza Oxfam, I found what I initially thought was a UK first edition of Thinner, which was one of the Barkman books that Stephen King published under a pseudonym of Richard Barkman. And it's a nice edition. The cover's in really good condition. The pages look pretty tight and not too yellowed. And it was printed in 1980. No, it's not. It was first published in 1985, but this isn't the first edition. In fact, it's a book club edition, a BCA, book club Associates edition. I was a member of a couple of their different book clubs years back. So so it's not a first edition, but it is a nice tight hardback cover of a book I remember enjoying back in the day, so I'll take it. And then, despite already owning a perfectly good and quite nice condition, because I bought it from new, paperback of this, I found the hardback and couldn't resist it. So this is Nick Harkway's Gnomon, which I have read, and I can't remember a thing about it. Somebody said to me, there's a shark in it. I said, there isn't a shark, it's a cyberpunk novel, but apparently there's a shark in it, and you know, there's certainly a shark on the cover. But I really don't remember much about it. It's a sort of police procedural / cyberpunk thing, I think, with a shark apparently. But that is in pretty good nick. The cover's a little bit beaten up at the top, just where it's been kind of squished on the shelf, or possibly in the bag that I brought it home in. And then I also bought, for two reasons. One, I really like the colour of the cover. It's a bit of a departure from all those really tedious black and white non-science fiction Ian Banks books. So this is The Steep Approach to Garberdale. It's in really good condition. It's a UK first edition. It's from 2007, and it's in really fabulous condition. I found in, I don't know where it was, in Oxford somewhere, Fairy Tale by Stephen King, which is a recent book, I think, 2022, so it was only published last year. A little while back, I think I spoke about finding book 2 of Mordaunt's Need by Stephen Donaldson, and that I was trying to resist the temptation to, I was going to wait till book 1 turned up in the wild, and I was congratulating myself for resisting the temptation to to fucking just buy it on the internet. Well, that didn't last long, and I did indeed just buy it on the internet. So I paid £7 for this, including postage. It's in pretty good condition. It's not perfect, but it's certainly very good, arguably near fine, at least for the cover and the binding. The pages are pretty spotty and just look a bit old looking, so they're not in crisp condition, but you know, I'm happy to have that. So that I've now got both of those, so I'll probably use the trade paperback omnibus edition that I have, which would have been perfectly good for any normal person, but I just use that as a reading copy. I do want to reread it, because I remember enjoying them quite a bit when I first read them. Okay, so this is the last little pile here. It's a mixed bag. Not really science fiction, kind of SF adjacent. J.G. Ballard's Crash. I have read this and found it to be a thoroughly miserable book that I didn't particularly enjoy. I know I think he's a little bit of a Marmite kind of author. I'm supposed to be impressed by his writing, and maybe it is really good, but I just thought the book was a bit shit. However, I got it because it's J.G. Ballard. It was like £2, and I have a matching edition of High Rise, and so I thought they would be nice, which also isn't really science fiction. So in my humble opinion, so they can be shelf buddies, and it's quite a nice copy. It's in very good condition. It's recent printing, 4th estate, from 2014. Okay, then I've got Girl with All the Gifts, which I'm sure we've got a copy of somewhere in the house, but it's on my wife's downstairs shelf, so I've got myself a copy. Again, it's a good condition. I've read that. I don't think I've seen the movie, but I have read the book and I enjoyed it. And then I've finally sort of joined the party. I've got The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson, which I found in a charity shop, which they charged me £2.99 for. I mean, it's quite thick and it is new or newish, so I suppose that's justified. I haven't read it, don't know anything about it. I hear it's good, and I do quite like Kim Stanley Robinson, although he can be a bit sort of preachy, beat you over the head with it, but I'll take it. And then I found together 2 books which go in together in a series, and unusually they're by different authors. I'm not sure if there are going to be any more than these 2, but there's Shelter, which I was interested in because it's by Dave Hutchinson. There's an author I like. I've got 5 or 6 of his books, and it's a sort of post-apocalypse I think post a like an asteroid strike type thing where the world is basically ended. The survivors in England have huddled in their tiny communities, scavenging the ruins of an old world. Now finally the long autumn, whatever that is coming to an end, and society of a kind is starting to build. But for how long? A new tyrant, Frank Pendennis, has risen in the east, etc., etc., etc. The struggle to inherit the world is just beginning. So that's book 1 of The Aftermath, which is a little series, it seems. And then book 2 of The Aftermath is set in the US, and that one's by Adam Roberts. Bought this primarily because it's David Hutchinson, but since they were there and they match and they're set in the same world, I got both. And then I was really pleased to find this. I've heard really good things about this book by the excellently named Sequoia Nagamatsu. That's quite a name, isn't it? I gather, not knowing much about it, but that it starts kind of small in scale and then gradually expands till it's kind of universe level, kind of far future history type thing, and in quite rapid short bursts as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be quite a ride. And I found Jasper Fforde. I've got a few of his books now, not read any yet. This is Shades of Grey, where hundreds of years in the future, the world is alarmingly different. Life is lived according to the rule book, and social hierarchy is determined by your perception of colour, of all things. So people are defined by what they can see. So Eddie Russet is an above average red, it says on the back here, and dreams of moving up the ladder, etc., etc. So I think Jasper Fforde kind of seems to have a talent for kind of just tilting the universe slightly, introducing a wild kind of offbeat concept and then running with it. And I gather he's got quite sort of Douglas Adams-esque humour to his writing as well. Okay, just 2 left. The last one of which is very significant to me. There's a Remainder bookshop in Oxford. I forget what it's called, but I found there were quite a lot of the SF Masterworks in various disguises, none of which I really bought because because I have a bunch of books that I don't really like them particularly, especially the ones with the yellow spine. But anyway, they had this, which is the 3rd, I think, of the 4 books which Emma Newman has written in the same kind of loosely connected universe. I really enjoyed Planetfall. I've got Atlas, After Atlas, which is the 2nd one, on my TBR pile for this month, so I'm going to get tuck into that fairly soon. And then this is the 3rd, Atlas Alone. Earth has been destroyed. 6 months after the Holocaust, Dee is on a colony ship, deeply traumatised, struggling with her rage as she searches for those responsible. Blah, blah, blah. What she learns will affect the future colony, and she realises that in order to save humanity, she may have to relinquish her own in the process. So I don't know, sounds exciting. And then the last book, which is really 4 books, I was super happy to find in the Oxfam bookshop, in one of the 2 Oxfam bookshops in Oxford. My very first science fiction book, I was given this compendium when I was 10 or 11 years old. In fact, the original might still be in the loft at my mother's house. But anyway, I certainly don't have it anymore. And I found this, and it is exactly the same as the one that I got when I was a kid. And this was my literary introduction to science fiction. Obviously, there were movies and TV programs that I enjoyed watching, but this was my first read of science fiction. And there are 4 pretty weighty classics in there. 2001: A Space Odyssey by Clarke, of course. The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester. The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. And I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. That's a pretty neat introduction to science fiction right there. As I recall, the one that I enjoyed the most was The Day of the Triffids. I recall being a bit titillated by the nakedness in the Game of Sardines and The Demolished Man. Probably kept me awake at nights more than it should have done. And 2001, I didn't really understand the bit with the apes at the beginning when I read it, aged 11 or whatever, but I did enjoy the bits in space. But I was hooked anyway. But anyway, that's this haul done. I've got to now find room for them on my shelves. I will be back soon with some more science fiction nonsense. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.